The jungle never slept. Beneath its dense canopy, where the trees tangled into an endless maze of gnarled roots and thick vines, something was moving, something massive. The sound of slow, lumbering footsteps reverberated through the humid air, followed by the sickening squelch of flesh dragging against the damp earth. A low, guttural growl echoed through the darkness, so deep and resonant that the leaves trembled in response. The animals that once ruled the jungle, the jaguars, the anacondas, even the mighty crocodiles had long since abandoned this place. They knew better than to linger where something unnatural had taken residence. And then, as if to confirm their fears, the moonlight finally caught a glimpse of the thing that had cursed these lands. A gorilla, enormous beyond belief, stood hunched amidst the trees, its fur writhing, shifting, alive with millions of parasitic worms that pulsed and coiled over its body like a tide of living flesh. The stench of decay surrounded it, a foul miasma that twisted the stomachs of those unfortunate enough to stumble upon its path. But it was not just the sight that terrified those who gazed upon it. It was the sorrow in its eyes. Behind the mask of wriggling parasites and rotting wounds, something desperate, something human, was trapped within this nightmare of living torment. Far beyond the jungle, past the rivers that carved through the land like veins, a remote village stood in uneasy silence. The people there whispered of the beast, speaking only in hushed tones, as if fearful their words alone might summon it. They called it many things, a curse, a demon, the revenge of the land itself. But the stories all carried the same warning: never go near the jungle, for within it lurked something that should not be. Yet, despite the fear that gripped their hearts, one among them had seen the suffering of the creature firsthand and refused to turn away. A researcher, hardened by years of unraveling nature's darkest mysteries, had stumbled upon the truth hidden beneath the folklore. The gorilla was not some monster to be feared. It was a victim, an innocent being trapped in a horror beyond comprehension. And if no one intervened, if no one dared to face the nightmare that had consumed it, the jungle would claim another soul, one whose suffering was already beyond words. The journey was not one taken lightly. Armed with only the knowledge of what they had seen and the will to undo what had been done, the researcher ventured into the jungle, each step weighed down by the knowing that this was not just about saving an animal. It was about confronting something ancient, something that should never have been disturbed. The deeper they went, the more the jungle seemed to change. The trees no longer whispered with the familiar sounds of life. They stood still, silent, as if holding their breath. The air thickened, heavy with an invisible dread that clawed at the skin. And then, in the heart of the jungle, they found it. Towering above them, the great beast loomed in the dim moonlight, its massive chest rising and falling with labored uneven breaths. The worms moved in waves across its body, burrowing deep, forming grotesque patterns that pulsed with something beyond hunger. And then, as the researcher locked eyes with the gorilla, something unimaginable happened. The beast spoke, not with words, but with a look, an expression so filled with pain and pleading that it stripped away every notion of it being just an animal. It was suffering. It knew what it had become, and it was begging for release. The weight of the moment crashed down like a tidal wave, suffocating, paralyzing. But there was no time for hesitation. The researcher reached for the equipment they had brought, hands shaking, mind racing through every possible solution. Could they remove the parasites without killing the host? Was there even a way to save something so far gone? As they prepared to take the first step, the jungle itself seemed to resist, the shadows shifting unnaturally, the unseen presence of something much older, lurking just beyond the veil of darkness. The gorilla groaned, a sound so deep and mournful that it seemed to vibrate through the trees, shaking loose leaves that spiraled to the ground like falling ash. And then, with an unnatural slowness, the worms turned one by one, their tiny, eyeless heads twisted in unison, sensing something new. The air grew colder, and the overwhelming sensation of being watched crept into the researchers' bones. Then, from somewhere deep within the jungle, a sound erupted, something inhuman, something that did not belong in this world. It was neither growl nor roar, neither scream nor whisper, yet it carried a force so strong that the very ground trembled. The researcher barely had time to react before the gorilla's body jerked violently, its muscles tensing, its breath hitching in agony as the worms began to convulse. They moved faster now, writhing chaotically, as if something unseen had given them a command. And then, as if pulled by an unseen force, the worms surged toward the researcher. The jungle closed in. The air turned to ice. And in the heartbeat of silence, before all chaos broke loose, one thing became terrifyingly clear. This was no ordinary infestation. This was something far worse. Something that did not want to be stopped.